Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, j'ai participé au sommet des dirigeants du Partenariat des Amériques à Washington. C'est un sommet qui rassemble 12 pays de l'hémisphère occidental et qui est organisé par le président Biden. Et je vais revenir à ma rencontre avec le président Biden dans quelques instants. During the APEP summit today, we talked about the economy, climate action, the geopolitical context in the world right now, and the importance of democracy. During these turbulent times, it is more important than ever to work with close partners in the hemisphere to strengthen our supply chains, protect ourselves from the impacts of climate change, and ensure stability, which is essential to prosperity. For example, earlier this year, to help build climate resilience, Canada partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank Group and committed $5 million to promote the use of nature-based solutions in Latin America and the Caribbean. Une autre façon d'assurer la stabilité, c'est de créer des bons emplois dans chacun de nos pays, y compris pour les membres des communautés marginalisées. Ça va être le but de l'initiative d'accélération du Partenariat des Amériques qu'on va créer avec les États-Unis et l'Uruguay pour soutenir les entrepreneurs dans ces communautés. To promote stability, we also need to help the millions of refugees, asylum seekers, and migrants in Latin America and the Caribbean. Since June, Canada has continued to welcome record numbers of migrants and refugees from the Western Hemisphere. And we are committed to helping migrant hosting communities on the ground, too, by investing towards better access to clean water, education, and other basic necessities. Comme je l'ai dit plus tôt, il faut continuer d'encourager la stabilité parce qu'un monde plus stable, ça veut dire plus de sécurité et de prospérité pour tous. Et c'est pour ça qu'on est ici aujourd'hui et c'est pour ça qu'on va continuer de collaborer de près avec tous nos partenaires des Amériques. Évidemment, les dirigeants suivent tous la situation au Proche-Orient et on a eu plusieurs conversations à ce sujet. Before the summit started today, I met with President Biden to discuss a range of issues. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and the relationship between Canada and the United States is very important in how we engage with all these issues. Of course, we talked about the Middle East and Hamas's terrorist attack. We've all seen too much horror these last weeks. Kids being killed, pregnant women needing care, communities devastated. You don't need me to describe the horror because we're seeing it every night, every time we open social media. We all want it to stop. We need a humanitarian pause. But let me repeat what needs to happen and what needs to happen now. First, all the hostages need to be released. We need much more aid going to the Palestinian people, and we need innocent civilians to be protected in Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank, including from extremist settlers. On the issue of Canadians and their families in Gaza, we are encouraged by the assurances that Minister Joly received from Israel and from Egypt that Canadians and their families will be able to leave Gaza in the coming days. We will not stop until all Canadians are brought out to safety. On va continuer de travailler avec nos partenaires dans la région et ailleurs dans le monde, y compris ici, bien sûr, aux États-Unis. Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis très content de répondre à vos questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Premier ministre. On va commencer la période de questions. Une question, un suivi avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin. Il y a des centaines de ressortissants étrangers d'autres pays qui sont sortis ces derniers jours. Pour le Canada, on comprend qu'il va falloir attendre au moins jusqu'à dimanche. Ma question, pourquoi est-ce que ça prend aussi de temps, autant de temps pour les Canadiens spécifiquement de sortir? Et quand vous avez discuté avec le président Biden ce matin, est-ce que vous lui avez demandé un coup de pouce?
Évidemment, nous travaillons tous ensemble pour sortir nos ressortissants de Gaza. Nous avons une situation extrêmement complexe, mais le Canada et Mélanie Joly en particulier, on est en train de travailler avec les Israéliens, avec les Égyptiens, avec les Américains, avec tout le monde pour essayer de sortir le plus rapidement possible les Canadiens et leurs familles. On a beaucoup d'espoir qu'on va les voir dans les journées à venir, mais on va continuer de travailler sans relâche pour que ça se passe le plus rapidement possible.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur la riposte israélienne. L'ONU a dit dès le 19 octobre, des experts de l'ONU, qu'il y a un risque de génocide contre le peuple palestinien. Le premier ministre israélien lui affirme qu'il ne fera aucun compromis dans sa riposte tant que les otages qui sont détenus par le Hamas ne sont pas libérés. Est-ce que cette ligne dure défendue par le premier ministre israélien vous inquiète? Est-elle acceptable?
Tout d'abord, nous comprenons tous à quel point Israël veut et a besoin que ses otages soient libérés. On parle de 200 personnes qui ont été enlevées de leur résidence le 7 octobre, qui sont dans des situations extrêmement difficiles. C'est certain que ces otages doivent être retrouvés, doivent être libérés. En même temps, on doit se demander si le coût de la justice doit être que tous les civils palestiniens souffrent. On a besoin d'assurer de l'aide humanitaire, on a besoin d'assurer de l'eau, des médicaments, de la nourriture, de l'électricité pour pouvoir fonctionner. Et c'est pour ça qu'on appelle à des pauses humanitaires le plus rapidement possible pour protéger la vie des civils.
Next question.
Adrian Moore with the Globe and Mail. Prime Minister, in your conversations with President Biden, did you get the sense that Israel is any closer to agreeing to these humanitarian pauses? And what are you doing to get them there?
I can't speak for Israel's decisions right now. What I can say is countries like Canada and the United States and others are continuing to encourage everything that can be done to protect human life, including with humanitarian pauses. This is something that I did speak about with President Biden. We shared our concerns. We also will continue to stand steadfast in terms of ensuring that Hamas is held to account, but also ensuring that everything is done to protect civilian life, including Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank.
What are your thoughts on some people calling for a ceasefire? What are your thoughts on the possibility of ceasefire?
It's hard to watch the news every night and see the impacts on civilians, including children, and not want it to stop. We understand how difficult the situation is, the impact of the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas. Hamas, an organization that is not only responsible for the deaths of Israelis, but also, and over years and decades, responsible for the deaths of Palestinians as well. We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing. We need to see civilians protected. We need to see a humanitarian pause to get aid in, to get Canadians out, to get vulnerable people out, to get hostages released. These are the things that the people around the world are looking for. Évidemment, on ne peut pas voir les nouvelles à chaque soir, voir les enfants tués, voir le cataclysme humanitaire qui est en train de se dérouler sans vouloir que ça cesse. Nous comprenons absolument à quel point Hamas doit être rendu en justice. Il doit avoir des conséquences pour Hamas. Mais nous devons nous assurer que la vie civile soit protégée. C'est pour ça que nous appelons pour des corridors humanitaires, pour une pause humanitaire, pour de l'aide pour les civils palestiniens. Nous demandons que les otages soient remis en liberté. Nous demandons qu'on fasse tout ce qui est nécessaire pour sortir les Canadiens et leurs familles de Gaza.
Next question.
Alex Panada, CBC News. Hi, Prime Minister. My colleagues are reporting that Canadians in Gaza might be able to leave on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Can I ask you what specific services the Canadian government intends to offer? What is the Canadian government going to be doing for people who manage to make it across the border?
We are working with all of our regional officials and our allies to make sure that as Canadians come out to safety, hopefully in the coming days, they are properly supported. We've been there from the very beginning for people leaving the West Bank, for people leaving Israel since October 7th. We will continue to be there to help Canadians and their families get to safety.
So there would be consular officials on the ground?
We will be there as we are.
Hi, Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg. Earlier this week in Ottawa, the U.S. ambassador said your country's in for a big fight if you move forward with the digital tax that would hit a bunch of big American tech companies. Did you discuss that with President Biden this morning? And are you willing to risk American trade retaliation by moving forward with this?
The finance minister addressed that issue earlier this week in her press conference. But I can tell you, this morning we talked about a lot of different issues. That one didn't come up.
Okay. Did India come up in your conversations with Biden? And is there any update that you have? Have you been briefed at all from law enforcement officials on the investigation? Are you concerned that this may end with no criminal charges? Just any update that you have at all on that?
Canada is a country of the rule of law, and we will always be. We were responsible and serious in how we approached the allegations we shared, and we continue to ask the Indian government to work with us to get to the bottom of this matter, to get to clarity on this matter. And we also deplore the violation of the Geneva Convention that the Indian government chose to do when they arbitrarily suspended the diplomatic immunity of over 40 Canadian diplomats in India. For a country to simply decide that as of a few days from now, your diplomats will no longer have diplomatic immunity is against all the principles of global diplomatic conventions. And for us, it's an example that that we need to continue to impress upon the Indian government the importance of the rule of law.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister James McCartan, Canadian Press. You said earlier this week that while you believe that Israel has a right to defend itself, the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. I'm wondering if you think that constitutes collective punishment, and if not, how we should interpret what you said.
Yes, I'm going to allow obviously the discussions will continue in academic circles and diplomatic circles and legal circles around this issue. For me, it's a matter of common sense. Seeing the suffering of so many people is not, to my mind, leading towards opportunities for a two-state solution. It's not leading towards greater prospects for peace in the medium and long term in the region. And that's what we all need to be focused on. Yes, there need to be consequences for Hamas for its horrific and unacceptable terrorist attack of October 7th. But we need to do so in a way that minimizes the impact on civilians. And that's why we've been calling for humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza. We've been calling for humanitarian pauses to allow people to get that support in and to get Canadians out. Yes, we need to release the hostages. They need to release the hostages. We need to see civilian life protected.
And if I could press you very quickly on the digital services tax issue, what exactly is the problem with a pause, sorry, bad word, for waiting a year to wait for the OECD framework to kick in? Why pick this fight now if in fact the ambassador's prediction comes true? What's the issue there?
Listen, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister spoke to this earlier this week. We're a government that believes that everyone should pay their fair share of taxes. We are hopeful that there will be a common framework eventually sometime in the future. But we've been very, very clear about our responsibility to Canadians, particularly for services delivered to Canadians on Canadian soil.
Thank you. That will conclude today's press conference. Merci. Ça va mettre fin à la conférence presse.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.